Hello everybody, welcome to week 3 of Global Ethics. Hope everybody's having a good semester so far. So the first thing I wanted to say was great job on the discussions last week. I was really impressed. This is the third time that I've taught this course, and by far the discussions that we had on the Sandel video were the best discussions we've had thus far. I was super impressed by that. I was glad to see that you guys are reconsidering your opinions and your arguments after reading other people's posts. You're interacting with each other. That was terrific, and if you guys can do that throughout the rest of the semester, then we're all really going to get a lot out of this course because I'm learning from you guys as well. So thank you for all the hard work that you put into that, and I hope that you can keep it up because that was really fantastic. Just a small logistical note. Once again, please make sure that you're checking the website, because as you guys noticed, I changed the syllabus up slightly last week because I wanted to do something a little bit different today. So I pushed that discussion question up one day. So and I don't intend to change the syllabus that often, but there may be certain situations where I feel like we need to spend more time on something, or we can probably just zip by something depending on how the discussions are going. So it's really important that you're making sure to check the website, and if I make any major changes to the syllabus, I will come up with the new syllabus and send it out, but this is pretty minor, so I'm not going to worry about changing it in this case. Okay, so the first thing is, obviously today is September the 11th, and it is the 11th anniversary of the World Trade Center attacks. And it seemed to me to be a bit appropriate, considering this is a class on global ethics, and this is a scenario that obviously was international and has affected the world on a large stage. I thought that it would be appropriate for us to discuss just briefly 9/11 and some of the implications that can have for global ethics. The first thing is, obviously global ethics has been an issue for a long time. It's been written about since at least the 17th century. 18th century got more popular with Kant. Kant makes a big case for what he calls cosmopolitanism. And that idea, they actually say that idea goes all the way back to ancient Greece. There was a guy named Diogenes Laertius, and he claimed that we should seek to be, instead of being citizens of our nations or of our states, we should seek to be citizens of the world. And of course, that's one of the central questions of this course is, can we do that? What would it look like for us to be citizens of the world? What would it look like for us to share similar moral beliefs in the face of such diversity? Because we live in a society, or we live in a world that's populated by very vastly different cultures, vastly different religions. And what does it even mean to say that you're a citizen of the world? So how does that question relate to the events that unfolded on September the 11th, the terrorist bombing of the World Trade Center? Well, first let's think about it, and unfortunately, this date falls a bit early in the course, so we haven't explored a lot of the ethical theories that I would like to apply to this situation. But let's think about it from what the discussions we've had so far, based on what we saw in Sandel's video. So, what kind of ethical justification? First, I guess the question is, could there ever be a justification for what the terrorists did on September the 11th? Many people agreed with the utilitarian form of reasoning. So if the terrorists believe, which as I'm sure they did, if they believed that their actions of killing 2,700 people were going to improve the status of the world or change the state of the world in a positive way, then could you say ethically that they were justified in murdering, essentially, 2,700 people? Once again, it depends on your ethical perspective that you want to bring to this. Whereas obviously, a lot of people are going to say that this act was just categorically wrong. Just like a lot of people said that murdering the cabin boy to feed the rest of the crew was categorically wrong, or that to kill the one healthy patient to save the 5 people who needed the transplants, categorically wrong. So it seems like here we're presented with a case where we have a clash of ideals, with the ideals of the terrorists maybe being that their actions in the long term are going to bring about some greater good, or this idea that what they did was just categorically wrong. And I think that the majority of people in the world would say that their actions were in fact categorically wrong. Another thing that that some folks brought up in the discussion was the role of religion or spirituality in forming our ethical beliefs. And obviously in this particular case, these guys are fundamentalists. They're Islamic fundamentalists, radical fundamentalists. We're going to read an article later today talking about neo-fundamentalists and the distinction between neo-fundamentalists and radical fundamentalists. But anyway, pretty clear in this case that what had shaped these guys was a type of religious fanaticism, basically, which is unfortunate because basically the events that happened, and this is something that is really unfortunate and has caused a lot of pain and suffering in the world, is that this particular brand of Islam that these guys were preaching is not really true to the doctrines of Islam at all. In fact, the word Islam means peace. So this is not, obviously was not a peaceful act. So yeah, I mean, it's very true that people's religious beliefs can influence their moral, their ethical beliefs, and they often do. But I think we have to be, and especially considering this is a philosophy class, we have to be a little bit careful of this. Because our object in philosophy is to determine whether our beliefs are justified or not. So for instance, we can say I was raised as a Christian, and one of the laws that was taught, it's Old Testament obviously, but if you catch somebody as an adulterer, you're supposed to stone them to death. And that is a religious doctrine. And that doctrine actually is still in effect in Islam, although it's subject to many different processes that it has to go through before it can actually take place. So say I'm a Christian, and this is a religious belief that has been taught to me. There has to come a point where you step back and do a critical reflection on the beliefs that have been imparted to you through religion. Right? You have to make sure that those doctrines that have been taught to you actually make logical sense. They're rational, and there's not some ulterior motive that somebody is trying to persuade you to do something. Which, in the case, if you've read any of the biographies or anything of the terrorists at all, you'll see that many of them had psychological issues and often were being manipulated by someone else to perpetrate these acts. So oftentimes religion can be used as a means of manipulation, especially for people that may have certain needs and things like that. So I'm not trying to downplay the importance of religion. I think religion is very important. But as this is a philosophy class, I want us to focus more on logical arguments and critical thinking. I think those are the key skills that we should be taking away from this. Okay, so what I want you guys to do for today in regards to the events that happened on September the 11th is there is a New York Times article. It's part of a book that was written by a philosopher. Is one of my favorite philosophers. His name's Kwame Appiah. He is a professor at Princeton University in their University Center for Human Values, and he's talking about, he calls it the case for contamination, which means sort of like, he's obviously a big proponent of the importance of local cultures, and we all want to maintain those cultures. But as our world continues to expand and we continue to have these things where we come up against each other, clash of cultures, maybe there needs to be some kind of contamination, as he calls it, between cultures to show us that we have a type of shared humanity. And this gets back to the question, we haven't really delved into the question of moral universalism versus moral relativism yet, but essentially moral relativism is the idea that morality is just relative to the culture. So, the terrorists, fly the planes into the World Trade Center. If you're a proponent of moral relativism, you say that they have a very different culture, a very different morality, and we have our own different morality. Therefore, we can't objectively say that what they did was wrong, because morality is bounded by culture, and this is different from the people who are moral universalists, who will say no, just like categorical ethicists will say that there are some things you can't do, and that sort of transcends all cultures. So there's a type of shared humanity that we all participate in, and that shared humanity can carry certain values and certain rights and obligations with it, and the terrorists violated that. But anyway, Appia is making the point that we need to actually merge our cultures and find that shared humanity, or else we're going to end up having many more September 11ths. And it's vitally important as well, because especially us in the United States, we have a tendency to be very isolated. We get insular. We get caught up in our own world. The Rwandan genocide goes on. 1 million people are murdered, and we don't do anything about it. So sometimes our moral justification for acting in international affairs is a bit lacking. But that's another reason why it's important that we have this contamination that Appia talks about. And he distinguishes between, as I was talking about earlier, two different approaches to this globalization, if you will, effect that's happening in the world. One is what he calls the neo-fundamentalists, who are the people who want to sort of retreat into their own enclaves and really value their culture, and the cosmopolitans, which are in line with what Diogenes Laertius in ancient Greece was talking about, being a global citizen. So I want you guys to read that article for today. I'm going to post it, and then we'll do a brief discussion of that probably on Thursday. We're also going to start in the Vaughan book as well. I know it's going to be a bit monotonous. We're not going to be discussing these really interesting scenarios. We're going to actually have to do some philosophy, so that's a little bit difficult, but actually it has some good stories and stuff, and it's really important. So that's what we're going to be doing on Thursday. Okay, so I also wanted to talk a bit about the Sandel video and justice and the particular cases that were discussed. I thought you guys did a great job of discussing it. I just want to point out some of the themes that I saw throughout and bring up some food for thought, basically.